hear it across the globe.
Uh,
We're recording live, so whatever you say or do will be heard live.
We're going to not say anything.
Cesar, you can
He said you could say stuff.
say
If you
stuff.
feel like participating, we're okay with that.
We can ask some questions.
We can ask you questions. It's about educational conferences.
I can help.
You go to a lot of those.
Well, I was a student before, and maybe I can help some.
I see no reason why you can't help.
We have a huge
Range of topics. Following.
No, not even close.
Landscape.
We're like a 30-second delay.
We're on a 30-second delay. So we're not technically live. Now we're live.
No, we are. Sam, listen. We were talking about
Hey, unleash your mind and the rest will follow.
okay, let's try now. Sam, we're talking about conferences. There's a lot of them. I have to turn this off. I hope it's still going live. But anyway, so we're here to talk about conferences, right? Educational conferences. And we don't know if we're live or not because this is our first time.
Yep.
But that's okay because we've done lots of conferences. We've presented a lot. We're not afraid to make mistakes and try out all of this new stuff out there.
I'm perfectly fine with making mistakes. It's the majority of my life.
But
But
go ahead. Yeah, I hear you on that. But there's mistakes that you don't make when you choose your conferences, right? So you've been out and about a lot this last semester. I'm gearing up to look at different conferences, and there's so many out there that are educational or parallel to education in some way. And it's hard to choose, right? And we also have budgets to think about. So I'm wondering, what have you been doing in 2024? What do you hope to do? And tell me some of the favorite conferences that you go to, and maybe some other people will get some good tips out of this.
Sure. Well, I mean, the timing's right. I just got back to Pittsburgh from AIEA, and it was my first time going to AIEA, which is
What's that mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
Help me out here.
it's an Association of International Education Administrators, which is a conference I never attended as a school teacher or as a college counselor or as a school administrator or as somebody who worked with international universities on the acceptance of credentials like a test, or in my role with M Square Media, where I'm working with U.S. institutions on our international student recruitment solutions for in-country representatives. But I went this time because M Square Media has been in the past. MSM they've been exhibitors, and it was my first time to go to that. So I just got back from that. So to answer your question, it's fresh on my mind. Some of the ones I've been to in 2021 and 2022, I was pretty much fully committed to everything Canada. And so I was at every type of conference in Canada.
Ooh, lots of stuff going on in Canada these days too to talk about.
Oh my goodness.
Our Headlines Unleashed will have to cover that.
Headlines Unleashed is going to have a couple Canadian people soon to discuss the good, the bad, the ugly, the real, the false within the headlines that are out there right now. Conferences are great. I love conferences. I think to be in the flesh is important. And face-to-face is really the way to go. And conferences are great for that because you can get so much more truth when you're at a bar sitting next to somebody over a pomegranate martini. Because that happened as well this last conference. So yeah, conferences that I'm looking forward to this year, probably the tried and true and how I got involved in educational conferences was when Eric Malouf, aka the Godfather from Trinity University, told me, if you want to be good at this job as college counselor, go to International ACAC, go to the CIS Forum. Those were his words to me in 2006, and so I started to get involved. At that moment, as a school counselor, Wilson Lee and I were friends, and he said, I've never been to International ACAC. I only ever go to National ACAC. So then I only go to NACAC. And so then we talked about the benefits of an international school counselor going to NACAC instead of International ACAC. So there's benefits depending on what you have. And so depending on what your budget is, maybe going to one over the other is the way to go.
And now Wilson Lee is the incoming president for International ACAC. So he went to not knowing it to loving it so much that he ran for president.
Yeah. I still don't think he's missed a NACAC though.
Oh, really?
Since he started in 2005 or something like that, going to NACAC, and I don't think he's missed one. But yeah, he is president-elect. He's about to run the conference in Western Ontario, bringing it back family style. Where
you fly into London Airport, but not London in the UK, right? Because International ACAC has been at Western more than I was at the last Western conference for International ACAC.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite events about International ACAC, and I love NACAC and the bigger one too, is that this is a group of like-minded people who get together on a smaller scale. It's, you know, our circuit is not that huge. Like, you really get to know people when you go to these conferences and you see the same faces over and over again. But I love the excitement that International ACAC brings, especially hearing what's going on in neighboring countries and how other types of educators deal with similar problems. That's really exciting, because those are some great conversations to bring back to your own counseling department, whether you're on the college side or the admission side or the agency side.
For sure. I think the small intimacy of International ACAC is actually found at NACAC. And this is surprising. So I remember I told it was Jemison Foster, who had just come back to the United States from Vietnam, and he was becoming an independent educational consultant, or, as I know, Emily, the proper term for an IEC is the cooperative counselor.
Thank you. We cooperate with everybody, or we should.
Yeah, we should cooperate for the good and the helpful of students. For the helpful of students, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but to best help students along the way, cooperating with the parents and the counselors and the educators and the students is important. So cooperating counseling. So and Jemison's great with that. And I said, Jemison, you got to go to NACAC. And he'd never been. And here's the sales pitch for why I said go to NACAC. It is International ACAC in 2006, when it was small. International ACAC, or OACAC previously, has grown, and it's awesome that it's grown, and it's taken on a new approach, right? To be a leading voice, maybe more so than a network of connected friends. And they're a leading voice right now, which is important. And you go and you have these conversations. NACAC does the same thing, but you're engaging with the more senior leaders of enrollment. And at the end of the day, in the United States, the directors of admission guide what international can and cannot do. Even if you're the director of international, you're still tied to what the director or the VP of enrollment is saying for the institution as a whole, and you're living within a slice of that. So that's why I love NACAC, because you're hearing that perspective of what universities really care about, and international is a piece of that. But there's only 300, maybe 400 people. And when you go to the affiliate meeting, everybody's in one small room. And so you see the international people. So I love
We have to explain what the affiliate meeting means. I think a lot of people don't even understand kind of the umbrella of these associations.
Oh, that's a whole nother one. We'll have to get somebody from NACAC in to talk
To
about
come and explain, basically that NACAC is the mothership and International ACAC is one of the affiliates, but there's also regional inside the United States, regional ACACs doing their own
Potomac.
thing.
Potomac and Chesapeake is an affiliate. Michigan is an affiliate. Ohio is an affiliate. Yeah, and these are smaller organizations that are more specific to those regions. You're right. So I think there's 23 in total. So if you really, in fact, if you were a school counselor in Asia and all of your students only wanted to go to Boston, like that would ever happen, you could actually maybe find a ton of value in not going to international ACAC, but actually going to New England ACAC.
Interesting point. I never thought, is that open to everybody? I don't even know.
Yeah, you can go as a non-member, or you could become a member for like $55, right?
No, that's very cool.
And then you go, and all of a sudden, you're dealing with the universities. You're dealing. BU is going to be there. Northeastern's going to be there. I would imagine some of the other big names are going to be there as well. And now you're going and you're meeting with the senior leaders, not just of international, but of the entire enrollment at a smaller level. So there's power in going to those affiliates in that way. This is a way to think about how to actually make the most
to make those choices. Yeah, and you do see kids internationally going to certain areas in the world. That's interesting. You could just dive in for a year, couldn't you? And really get to understand those. That's an interesting way to spend your money. Like, here's $55. I'll spend a year just focusing on the Northeast colleges because that's where the vast majority of my kids go, and I want to make contacts. I never thought about it that way. I do agree with you on the fact that NACAC brings in people in different positions at the university level. And what's interesting about that is actually doing a proposal, planning a presentation, and you get a different depth if you're working with somebody. So like me, I was on the international side looking at different types of extracurricular activities and how they're viewed by colleges around the world. Right. And then we bring in somebody in at the university level to talk about how sometimes extracurricular activities can or cannot catch the eye or be an institutional goal.
I like it. I would title that session Checkmate. Does it help? Did I win? Or something like that. And then talk about, hey, Denise from the Netherlands. Somebody puts their not captain. Yeah, sure. Captain of the chess club. Does that matter at all to the Dutch institution? Yes or no?
It's on there. I'll show you my presentation. I have an answer for that.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's a great idea, Emily. I love it.
So what else is going on though in terms of presentations? I want to also mention that since COVID has gone away for the most part, it's kind of been a hardcore blast of all these different opportunities. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of associations are being more inclusive of having regional events. So yours was in Washington, D.C., right? Because a lot of your events are in the States.
Sure, yeah.
But you have a couple coming up over by me here in Brazil, and there's a few that I want to go to over in Europe. So what's that looking like for you?
Yeah, if I could just do conferences, I could never be home, right? And everyone would have a different value and how I would submit proposals. So at AIEA, where I was just at, I was there with M Square Media to meet with the senior leaders of international admissions at universities, not just in the United States, but around the world. Like Philip from UBC Okanagan in Canada is a board member of AIEA. And the government leadership from Norway and Cambodia were there. And so when you go to that conference, what you're doing is you're trying to figure out how to engage universities that need, well, for me, right, with M Square Media, I'm trying to engage universities that are looking to grow international student populations from diverse markets. And so I'm trying to go to that one. That one is strategic. It's every year, and it's DC, DC, and then the third year they go someplace else. So last year
Okay.
was DC, this year's DC, next year's Houston, then it'll go DC, DC, and somewhere else.
And
It
this
was,
is mostly like business to business, so do they have due proposals
yep. And so I went to
and
session. I went to sessions, sorry, yeah. Um, I went to sessions on immigration trends in Africa, immigration trends in India, um, Japan, the policies that the government is implementing, not just for their inbound students, but for their outbound students. They don't just want 500 or 400,000 inbound international students. They want to send 500,000 of their Japanese students outbound for a semester abroad or somewhere else, because that helps with the internationalization of understanding, which can lead to so much peace and goodwill around the world when you fully understand somebody else. So Japan was doing that session. I went to a session on what school counselors are saying. I went to a session on what students are saying about why they're choosing certain programs. OPT, which you and I have talked about before. I think OPT should be open to every program. And I think we all know that some students who are not STEM students choose STEM programs because it gives them additional years of OPT, or they choose to go to a place like Canada or the UK or Australia where they have working opportunity.
Yeah. No,
As,
absolutely. So it sounds
um,
to me like there's more executive level conversations going on, the things that maybe we wouldn't talk about it, or we have filtered down a little bit at like an event for college counselors. Like, do I want to know, who's recruiting and who's doing what in Japan, what the student mobility is like as a counselor? Yeah, I'm interested, but I'm also interested at the counselor level. How are they counseling kids, over in Japan? So
sure.
it's a different scene. It sounds pretty in depth.
It is, and I think you have to look at the macro lens versus what you implement in your role. So if you are a school counselor based in a school, a conference like AIEA where you're talking to high level administrators doesn't make a lot of sense for you.
Mhm. Unless it's
Um,
an
and
interest.
you mentioned M Square Media is hosting Eduverse summits, right? So last week there was, or 2 weeks ago, there was one in Nigeria in which universities, agents, which are educational agents that are not in schools, that are not being paid by the students, they're being paid by universities when a student enrolls, right? So they're preparing and providing services. And then there's, educational agents or educational consultants or cooperative consultants who made the work on a different way. Those are going to be at Eduverse. Government agencies are going to be at Eduverse, trying to highlight a little bit more about what are the trends and how can we best engage. And so there's a very diverse group of people there to talk about what is the future of education. What is the future of education in Brazil, which is happening the week of March 11th or something like that. There's Eduverse in Sao Paulo, along with some other events. Then there's one in Canada and India. And so those are out there. And sometimes it's good to go to those just for a year to kind of get your bearing, and then you can read the headlines, right? And but then there's conferences that I love that are also international that I think as a school counselor makes sense to go to, because you have the international ACAC intimacy of connection one-on-one with universities. The university learns your school when they're in the country. They come to visit your school. You know that university really well. You know what they're looking for, whether a chess club, does make sense. If their
Mm.
president, captain of the chess club does that work. Those conferences like International ACAC, National ACAC make a lot of sense. So
I think for me, if I could choose a way to budget myself, I would I would always do, I think, the international ACAC, whether it was the big conference every July, wherever that may be, or one of the regional conferences. It's early 2025. The regional conference for international ACAC is going to be actually down here in Brazil in Sao Paulo. I would do that because that's something really close to my heart. For my learning curve, I think I would pick a conference that's out of my comfort zone that will give me access to some of those other people in the industry that I could actually understand a little bit more about,
Mhm.
right? And then I would do one super local. So something that happens in the Latin America region, just because you always want to start in your own backyard,
Yeah,
to figure out what's going on around you, right? So that would be the way I would triage my money and my choices.
I like that. I like that. So if you're in India, for instance, or in South Asia, you could look at International AC is doing one of their regionals in India.
They are.
At the end of IC3, which is doing an event to help train and support the idea of putting a counselor in every school in India. So you could put the two together and have two different conferences. Eduverse India is also happening at that moment. Um, so you have those three that are all tied together at one time, which gives you a little bit of the regional and the next ones. I like that. I think advocating for a budget where you can do those sort of conferences and work is important.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I could see our live right now, see if anybody is offering up ideas about
I
conferences that they love. And don't forget, not everybody knows all the acronyms, right? Sam, we could sit here all day and be like, International ACAC, that was OACAC, that have you ever gone to ERCOS?
Your ERCOS. So
You've been in NCIS, CSI, FBI?
how about API, APAI?
Are you in the IB or the AP?
The College Board Forum. There is one that happens at CAIE, which happens every 3 years, and it's a combination of North America and South America. And it just happened in Las Vegas. I was going to try to go just to.
So I didn't even know about that, and I'm in South America.
So
Who has the comprehensive list of the acronyms, what they mean, and each conference and what the audience or format is like? Is there one out there?
I've built some of a repository of that information. Yeah.
Have you really? Are you planning on posting that to your
I'll put it
YouTube page?
Yeah, maybe I'll post it. I think I got to do some work cleaning it up, but yeah, I can do that.
It's amazing how many different conferences you're throwing at me now that you have been in different positions outside of college counseling.
So
I mean,
yeah,
there's so many of them.
there's so many. Let me throw out because you said if you could only do right the three, you do the
Yeah.
international
Throw your three. Marry one, throw one off the cliff, and take another one out for a pomegranate martini.
Pomegranate martini. Mary one. The Mary one is the one that I will go to every year, right? Fully committed, lifelong, and that would be International ACAC. Partly I was on the board, right? Partly I feel like Michigan State 2008, where I first met people like Taryn and David Allen and Andrew. I was standing in line with David Allen, not even realizing he was the president. And then later on the NACAC board, and so those sorts of conferences. That's now 16 years in the making. I'm going to International ACAC every year.
Can we just remind anybody listening that any university in the world can put in a proposal to be the host as the site for International ACAC?
Yep. Every July, you got an RFP, the request for proposal. Happy to help you on that if you're really interested.
All 95 pages. I did that with Florida a couple of years ago. It was a lot. They did a fantastic job.
It is a lot. I helped as well. And the proposal is quite long. So International ACAC has shifted it so that it doesn't have to be as long, so that it's not as onerous.
That's a headline. That's a headline. And an SAT word.
I don't ask me to spell it right now. And then so International ACAC, I'm marrying. Which one am I? Which one am I dating long term? That's the one that I want to go to every year, and I'm going to try to figure out if I go, and I'm going to submit proposals to. But if I can't make it, it's okay. But I'm going to try to go back again. That would be NAFSA. That's the National Association of, I don't remember, NAFSA, and they have NAFSA regionals. I really like NAFSA. And if you are an international counselor who believes in geoswerving, if you believe in getting students to the right institution, and you know that some of your students might actually thrive in a city like Istanbul, Like I worked in Singapore, a super awesome, diverse, and harmonious, tolerant city full of religions that are different and people that are different. And contrary to popular statements, is actually quite tolerant and open and free. Like Singapore has that, but there's boundaries that actually can guide great conversations. Maybe you love that and you love great food.
Do
Maybe
you find a bigger diversity of schools and ideas from around the world at that conference? Bigger than an international ACAC?
NAFSA, absolutely. You walk into a NAFSA conference, and the reason I bring up Istanbul and Turkey is you walk into this exhibit hall, and there are on the ceiling signs that say Turkey, 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 and over there, Spain, 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 and over there, Italy, 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 and over there, Qatar, Qatar, and then Czechia. And there are 27 different countries that are fully represented with government sponsorship and university representatives of every university trying and seeking partnerships with international students. So if you're like, you know what, I've never sent a kid to Turkey, I'm going to go check out these universities in Istanbul and talk with them about my students, and I'm going to learn from them. And that's, and I'll tell you what, international ACAC counselors, if you're listening to this and you have a budget and you're like, I want to go Memorial Day weekend all the way. It's a tough time, right? APs have just ended, IBs have just ended, graduation is happening. It's not an easy time to get to the United States, but if you want to get to New Orleans Memorial Day weekend, last week of May, go to NAFSA and find every counselor or every university. You'll be the only international school counselor there. You'll stand out. Your school will stand out. The university reps that are saying, oh, well, that's not really our job. We're working with agents or we're working with study abroad type people. But you'll stick out in their mind. And then they'll tell the recruiter, hey, did you know about, International Community School of Singapore? I didn't know that existed. Their students might be interested in Spain or Turkey or Eden.
Very strategic, Sam. That's
I
a
know.
bigger one too, right? Isn't that like thousands of
I think there's going to be
attendees?
I think there's going to be 8 to 10,000 people from around the world in New Orleans.
It's a great city to go to. I mean, international ACAC Tulane, right? That
No,
was
exactly. And I think there's 100% attendance at each of the 8 a.m. educational sessions.
wow.
No, that's a full joke because in New Orleans, there's no way those 8 a.m. educational sessions are getting 100% attendance after a night in New Orleans on Canal Street.
Hey, it's funny that you say that. I feel like more people show up. I mean, they may not show up in the best of shape, but people are so excited to be around each other. And New Orleans has such a great vibe. Like, how could you not want to be 24 hours checking everything out there?
Yeah, that is true.
But Sam, I heard a rumor they don't serve pomegranate martinis. That's not the drink of choice in that city. So you may have to switch your menu up a little bit.
No, that'd be a hurricane.
Yes, it would be.
So that's we're over time on live. We got 3 minutes. International ACAC, I'm marrying. NAFSA, I am long-term dating. And then like the one night stand, the one I want to go to and check out. But probably won't go back again. But maybe I will. And that to me would be one of the NAFSA affiliates.
Okay.
API, the Asia Pacific Association of International Education, EAIE, the European Association of International Education, the IESA, the International Education Association of South Africa. I'd probably try to go to one of those on like a one night stand.
That's a good, I like all these ideas. Well, I look forward to seeing if our live worked and what people have to say. And if you have a backdoor resource list, I'd love to see that too one day.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll see you for headlines next week, right? We'll be talking about what's going on around the world.
Yeah, we will do headlines unleashed next week. I think we might pull in a guest to talk specifically about a Canadian headline. And for now, I'm signing off. Unleash your mind. And the rest.
All right. All right. I'll unleash you and I'll unleash the live